Ms. Gregg, the state of Mississippi has has rested its case in chief. It's now time for the defense's case. It's the court's duty to make sure that you understand that you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to testify. However, you also have the right to testify. It is your choice and your choice alone. Do you understand that, Ms. Gregg?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you had discussions with your attorney about that? I don't want to know what they were, but have you been able to talk to your attorneys about that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ultimately, you can rely on their advice, but it is your choice. And you alone, it is only your choice. Don't look at your lawyer, Ms. Gregg. You and you alone will live with your decision. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do y'all need a few minutes to talk to her about whether or not she wishes to testify?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll give y'all 10 minutes. Step back. All right, have you made a decision? Ms. Gregg, you keep looking at your lawyers, and look, you can listen to your lawyers, but I want you to hear me. You and you alone will make this decision. There are two decisions that you're required to make, whether or not you're pleading guilty and whether or not you're testifying. And at the end of this, only you will live with those decisions. Have you made a decision whether or not you wish to testify?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, what's that decision?
I'd like to wait and see what the testimony.
No problem. You can decide at any point before your case closes. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, have a seat. All right, anything further from the state?
No, sir, Your Honor.
From the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, as soon as the jury's in, we'll get started. Just see how many we have. Don't line them up yet, though.
Your Honor, we do have one issue for the court. Our expert witness has arrived and he's sitting in court, and we would ask permission to allow him to sit in for the testimony.
Yes.
Your Honor, we would inform the court the same hour, expert, Dr. Pickett and Dr. Duke, on it.
All experts are able to sit in the court during any portion of the testimony. We got them all present, that's fine. Yeah, hold on just a second, let Molly get back. It's the only person we can't really start without. From where? I will report it. All right, counsel, both sides approach. Everyone follow the court's instructions overnight. Did anyone allow themselves to view any media coverage of this or any social media coverage or any news coverage of this? Anyone? See everyone shaking their head in the negative. All right, we'll begin. State having rested its case in chief, the defendant may call any witnesses if it wishes.
Your Honor, first witness is the minor, SK.
All right, for any media out there, please, they have a minor, please cut camera.
Mr. Smylie, how are you doing today?
All right, I guess.
And you testified, let me ask you this. We've heard some testimony from you already regarding the relationship between Ashley and Carly. And you've said already that when you first met Ashley and Carly in 2019, until the time of March 19th, that both Ashley and Carly had a wonderful relationship, and you and Carly had a wonderful relationship.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And you talked with the state yesterday about getting married in Gatlinburg.
Yes, that's correct.
And who all was there for your wedding in Gatlinburg?
Just myself and Ashley and Carly, and we got married on the balcony of one of the cabins up in the mountains.
Okay. And were any photographs taken?
Yes.
Okay. And was that, how would you describe that day?
It's really good. It was one of the best memories I've ever had.
And how did Carly appear about you and Ashley getting married?
And she appeared very happy with it all, and she was just her normal, wonderful self all day.
And was there an occasion after you and Ashley got married that you guys adopted some puppies?
Yes, we've got 2 golden retrievers now. They're running around playing all the time.
Okay. And can you tell the jury a little bit about how you got that second golden retriever?
We actually surprised Carly with that one. We had talked a lot about the first one and got him, and decided he needed a buddy at some point, a year and a half later. So we had got it all set up to get him and didn't tell her. And we said we had to go meet her grandparents, pick something up, and then we'd go out to eat. And we were really waiting on the lady to bring the puppies around to us, and she was pretty surprised and taken back with that one.
And on any normal, typical weekend, how would your family typically spend a weekend?
We were kind of in between my parents and Ashley's parents, so sometimes we'd go to her Carly's grandparents' house, one or the other, or we'd stay home some weekends. And she got to see family, or she got to hang out with the dogs. Sometimes her and her mom, more so than me, I'm not much on all the movies and stuff, but they'd sit down and watch movies they liked together. They like running and going shopping or something here and there when they needed to.
Okay. And what, if anything, would you and Carly do together on the weekends?
Video games, some, just random stuff. I was always taking her to like karate and guitar, so she'd sit down and play guitar for us. And she had a acoustic guitar and electric guitar. We got her at Christmas one year, and just whatever, try to take it easy.
Okay. And do you recall when you and Ashley got married?
Yes.
When was that?
It was June 13th of 2020.
Okay. And do you recall about when you and Ashley surprised Carly with that puppy?
Yes.
When was that?
Ooh, I don't know the date on that one. It was, let's see, he's about to turn 2 next month, so it was right at 2 years ago, I guess.
So, would that be September 2021?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you recall whether or not you guys took any photos?
We
afterward?
did. I guess it would have been 2022, because it'll be 2 in a month, so.
You mean when you got the puppy?
Yeah, when we got the puppy.
Okay. And did you and Ashley have an opportunity to take any photos once you got home with the dog?
Yeah, I've got video of him meeting the other dog the first time in the backyard and everything. A lot of pictures of her holding him in the parking lot with the lady that we picked him up from.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach? Mr. Smylie, I'm handing you these 2 photographs. Do you recognize who's in that first photograph?
Yes.
Okay, who's in the first photograph?
It's Ashley, myself, and Carly.
And when was that photograph taken?
That was in June of 2020 when we got married in Gatlinburg.
Okay. And is that photograph an accurate depiction of when it was taken?
Yes.
Okay. And with the second photograph, who's in that photograph?
That's Ashley and Carly.
Okay. And do you recall when that photograph was taken?
Same day before we got married.
Okay. And is that an accurate depiction
Yes.
of what you observed that day?
Yes.
That's photographed there.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Your Honor, I would ask that these 2 photographs be admitted into evidence.
Same objection. The objection to remoteness will be sustained in part and overruled in part. The court will sustain the objection to remoteness to this photograph, have it marked D2 for identification purposes only. The court will overrule the objection as to this photograph. As to remoteness, it'll be marked S3 all purposes. I mean D3 all purposes.
And may I publish that to the jury, Your Honor?
Hand it to the bailiff.
Smylie, I'm gonna hand you 2 more photographs here. And can you describe for me who's in that photograph?
It's Ashley and Carly and our second puppy, Finn.
And who took that photograph?
And I did.
And about when was that photograph taken?
I would say maybe a year and a half ago.
Can you give me a month, a year?
Not sure without looking it back up, but I would say maybe near the end of 2022.
End of 2022? And who's in that photograph there?
That's myself and Carly with our first dog, Wyatt.
Okay, and can you give me a month and year for when that photograph was taken?
I don't know a month on that one, but it was maybe just over 2 years ago.
Can you give me the year?
I'd say sometime in 2022.
Okay, and who took this photograph?
Ashley.
And is that a true and accurate depiction, as
Yes.
you recall it, that time?
Yes,
And who took the first photograph?
I did.
Okay, and is that a true and accurate depiction of what
Yes.
you photographed at that time?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I would ask that these 2 photographs be admitted into evidence.
Same objection as to relevance and remoteness.
Yes, sir.
Overrule the objection as to remoteness. They'll be entered as defense next in number.
Your Honor, I would ask that these 2 photographs be published to the jury.
Would handle the vote.
And Heath, I have one last photograph for you here. Can you tell me who's in that photograph?
That's Ashley and Carly.
And who took that photograph?
And I did.
And can you tell me about when that photograph was taken?
That one was taken in June of 2020 when we got married. Give or take a day or two. I forgot what day we went on a hike up there.
And is that a true and accurate depiction of what you observed at the time you took that photo?
Yes, it is.
I think I'm going to get you to help me pass that to Judge Arthur. Judge Arthur, we would ask that that photograph be admitted into evidence.
Same objection.
Same objection.
Be sustained as to remoteness and cumulative. Mark it D next in number for identification purposes only.
Your Honor, we would typically.
Cross-examination.
May I first return?
Yes, ma'am.
I've handed you 2 exhibits, Exhibit S7 and D3. Is it your testimony that this picture, what year was Exhibit 7 taken?
That was just under a year ago.
And I believe yesterday you testified that that was an accurate description of the way Ashley looked in physical appearance the last day you saw her alive.
Yes, I guess that's reasonable.
And in fact, the picture that you just talked about from 2020 actually kind of looks about the same, doesn't she?
It does.
You agree with me that we won't ever get to see Ashley after March 19th, 2024, get a day older, will we?
Correct.
And that's because of Carly's actions?
Yes.
This picture of Carly from 2020, would you look at her? You identified her yesterday at the Phillips table. Does that look like the same girl to you?
Yes.
She doesn't look any older as she sits at that table 4 years later?
Not really.
May I publish that to the jury again, Judge?
Yes. Hand it to the bailiff.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Smylie, isn't it true that yesterday you testified that Carly Gregg is the person who shot you? I think we talked about that the injury was about 6 inches from your head.
Yes.
No further questions.
Redirect examination.
Just briefly, Your Honor.
Heath,
Yes.
do you feel any differently about Carly now than you did when those photographs were
Your
taken?
Honor, improper redirect.
Sustained.
Heath, on cross-examination, Catherine asked you if Carly appeared to be the same in those photographs that you were looking at as she does right now. Does she?
She does to me. I mean, I've aged a little bit over time. I think everybody does.
Okay. Is there any other way in which you feel Carly has changed dramatically from how she appeared in those photographs and how she appears today?
Not really. I mean, her hair's different, obviously, but it was fixed up that day for a wedding.
Okay, thank you. Tender of the witness, Your Honor.
May this witness be finally released by the defense,
Oh, yes, Your Honor.
by the state.
No, sir.
All right, you're still under subpoena. You're still not to discuss your testimony. I'm sorry you'll have to wait outside the court. Okay. Defense may call its next witness.
Your Honor, we call Deputy Stack. And if we can have this a few minutes, we can set.
All right, Mr. Livingston, go on ahead and set up monitor and talk. Yeah. Did you mean Shaq? Shaq. Okay.
Where do you work at currently?
Rankin County Sheriff's Department.
And what do you do for Rankin County?
I do interdiction, criminal interdiction.
And I want you to go back to, I think it's the 19th of March of this year. You participated in a case concerning Carly. Do you remember that?
I do.
What was your participation in that?
So I drove out there to assist. I came from the interstate. Whenever the call came out, I don't know the full details of it, but I knew what we were doing. I came out there to assist look for her. When I came to look for her, I came on Farmington Boulevard out there. I think it was around 5 o'clock traffic, 5:30. I can't remember the exact time. When I was coming down Farmington Boulevard, there was traffic in front of me, traffic behind me because it's a big neighborhood. I looked to my right. I saw her standing there, a female. That's what I knew we were looking for. I immediately put the car in park. I hopped out. I said, "Are you involved in this incident that happened in this neighborhood?" She goes, "Yes, sir, I am. It's my stepdad, okay?" And I said, "I can't talk to you about that." I put her in handcuffs, put her in my car, and we began to go to the scene.
Yes, and so you were informed to take her back to the scene, is that correct?
I was informed different things on the way to the scene. Yes, I was informed to take her to the scene. I was informed to take her to the office. I was informed to take her to the scene. So I kind of did a merry-go-round in Farmington for a minute around a median. Finally, I did go to the scene. Yes.
And so finally, evidently, you were told to bring her to the
Yes,
scene.
that's correct.
Okay, and so then once you got her to the scene, I know you had some conversations with different officers and everything.
I did.
Okay, and you've seen your video from that night, or
Yes.
from that day, and you
Yes.
remember it.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, not just dead specific, but yes, I remember.
Okay. At some time, you turn your body cam off. Do you
I
remember?
muted it. Yes.
You muted it.
That's correct.
Okay. And you muted it because you didn't want what was being talked about heard, correct?
Right, about a personnel issue. Yeah, I didn't want to just start talking about an issue there it was about having to go back and forth coming around to the scene.
Okay. You're in the, let me just understand correct.
Okay.
Okay. You have a policy and procedure with the Rankin County Sheriff Department.
That's correct.
And it says you're not supposed to mute it and you're not supposed to turn it off, correct?
That's correct.
And you're in the middle of an investigation.
That's correct.
And you're the person that has custody and control of the suspect at this point.
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Sustained as leading.
Who had custody and control when you turned your body cam off?
She was in my vehicle, but she had other investigators that were then assisting.
Okay.
Yeah, I was out of the car. She was just still in there.
And I think, is there any time that you can ever turn or mute when you're on, I guess, still performing your duty on a case?
Well, during this particular situation, I was talking about something that was not involved in the case. I was talking about a personnel issue, so that's why I did it.
Okay, so you intentionally violated your policy.
Objection, Your Honor.
On what basis? Sustained as leading.
What is the policy on the Rankin County Sheriff's Department's use of body cams?
Yeah, I mean, the policy is that you are whenever you are actively communicating with the public or with the suspect or what have you, that you remain with the body camera on.
Would you want to review it just to make sure you understand? Is it, because I'm confused, is it just when you're communicating, or are you supposed to have it on all the time while the case is going?
Well, you're supposed to carry it on all times while the case is going on, but at the time I was talking about something different, so yeah, I muted it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been exculpatory evidence or something like that. That's the reason why you muted.
No.
Okay. Now she talked to you, I think, at some point about asking to see her mother. Is that correct?
Asking to see her mother?
Yes, she asked to see her mother.
I don't recall that.
Okay. Didn't you have a report and you put in your report?
I don't recall that. I don't
you didn't
recall
know,
that.
and you didn't know what to tell her exactly?
Yeah, it wasn't I didn't know the details of the case to tell her anything.
And so, but she was asking at that point, okay, she was asking to see her mother, correct?
No, she never asked about her, but she only asked about how her stepdad was.
And so there was never any time where she asked about her mother?
I don't recall that.
Okay. May I beg the court's indulgence?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we would ask that we be allowed to publish his, or play the video, his body cam video. Yes, Your Honor, we have a copy of the video of this officer that we would ask to enter into evidence at this time.
Your Honor, we present.
Yes, we requested every time.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to go ahead and ask y'all to step out for about 10-15 minutes. Everyone remain seated while the jury exits. Officer Shack, we're in recess. You're not to discuss your testimony with anybody. If you need to use a restroom, let one of the bailiffs know. They'll take you out. All right. What's before the court is a request to move a body cam video into evidence. Is that correct? The state's only objection is you haven't seen the physical media that's being introduced into evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your
There's no other, if it is in fact the body cam of Tony Shack, you have no other objections, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, get the body cam, I'm going to instruct the defense, you got a few minutes to get the body cam video onto a physical media that can be entered into evidence. The problem with the thumb drive is, unless you have a clean computer that you're going to provide at your cost to the state, it's got to be able to play on that thing right there. That's all we have for the jury to take back. So y'all take 10 minutes, we'll be in recess. All right. I left the courtroom at 10:06, gave y'all 20 minutes. It's actually now 10:44. Do you have copies of the medical records that you need at this time, Mr. Camp?
Yes, Your Honor.
Has the state had an opportunity to view the medical records in their entirety?
The medical records, yes, Your Honor.
All right.
And there's one set of records from the school district as well.
All right. Are the parties agreeing by stipulation to the admissibility of the records?
Of the medical records and the school records, yes, sir.
All right. Are there any more exhibits that may be needed by either side during this witness that we don't have by the state?
Your Honor, I believe that they're going to talk about journal entries and sketchbooks, and they didn't have a copy of those, so that's what I was trying to get copies of upstairs.
Okay. Which journal entries? Are you objecting to the use of journal entries?
No, sir. Well, we do have a copy of the journal.
Right. Did you ever turn it over to the state?
The state actually turned it over to us.
Okay. So are we ready to go by the state?
Yes, sir.
That's the only thing that he's relying on.
By the defense?
Well, I think there was a page of the sketchbook, I think that's what Catherine agreed on that.
Yeah, so I told her that we would not agree to stipulate to just certain pages. If it was coming in, it was all coming in, and so we were trying to print the documents upstairs.
Do we have the documents?
Yes.
Okay. Is there another witness that we can take up at this time, rather than leaving the jury out while everybody gets their paperwork together?
Your Honor, Mr. Livingston, just for the court's, I'm not obviously calling anybody, but for the court's knowledge, Mr. Livingston just messaged me a couple minutes ago and said that he's almost finished allowing Deputy Chat to review the body cam footage, so I think Deputy Chat should be ready to be recalled.
That's still a few minutes away. Deputy Chack has to watch the body cam video. Does the defense have another witness it can call while the paperwork is being gathered?
No, Your Honor.
You have no other witnesses other than Dr. Andrew Clark.
Dr. Andrew Clark and Deputy Shack, Your Honor.
That's all you have left.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. The state is correct insofar as there are portions, if there is a journal, the state is invoking the rule of completeness. So I can't put the doctor on the witness stand until I have a complete set of what's going into evidence. How much longer will it take? I take it the state printed out the medical records for the defense.
Sure, they had some, we printed out the rest of them. We have a complete copy now to introduce.
Can we at least try to do the medical records and hold the, do you have any idea how long it'll take for all the journals to be printed? Does the defense have all the journals?
The defense has a complete copy of a journal, it's just a sketchbook.
Do you have a complete copy of the sketchbook?
No, Your Honor.
Your Honor, Deputy Chat is on his way down, he has reviewed the video. They can call him if they wish to. That's Mr. Livingston.
Is that correct, sir? And Judge, for the record, I did leave, one of the ladies in my office has agreed to keep printing those, and they're gonna bring down a copy, 2 copies.
All right. Give the defense the disc. Y'all get over here and make sure the TV works before I bring the jury back in and have to send them back out. I tell you what, when the jury's out, if you have any exhibits that you intend on showing with Dr. Clark, go ahead and give them to the state so they can be looking through those. You have the ones that you actually want to offer into evidence, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. There and we stipulate the Dr. CD.
Honor, would you like for me to investigator get Mr. Chapman?
Pull Mr. Shack outside the courtroom for just a moment. If you would, if an investigator can get him posted up though, that would be helpful. Post him up outside. All right, you may call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we would recall Tony Shack.
All right, Tony Shack, please. Let's reswear.
You swear to affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Have a seat. Yes, Your Honor. You understand that you're still under oath, your answers are sworn answers under penalty of perjury?
Yes, Your Honor.
I allowed you to step down for a minute. Did you discuss your testimony with him?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Tony, I think you went upstairs and reviewed the video, and we made a copy of the video. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so, is this, may I approach the witness? This is the video that you.
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, we would ask that this be admitted as defense exhibit, I think it's 4.
Seven.
7. I'm sorry.
Any objection as to D7 all purposes by the state?
No, sir.
All right, if you would, please bring it up and let's mark it D7. If you bring it to the court reporter, we admit D7 all purposes.
Your Honor, we would like to publish this to the jury at this time.
Yes, sir. Mr. Levingston, would you assist him?
Where's that? Okay, up here, take a right.
Stop sign, turn right onto Ashton Way. Then the destination is on your right. Can you just leave north of the sign?
Kill it out. So show me out at the scene now. What's the scene now?
The destination is on your right. 214 at Children.
We're not gonna pull that. Well, that's because they got me going around the merry-go-round. Okay.
What are you pushing?
She was coming out of the area of Harold Farmington Boulevard.
We just drove through that.
She's back here. She's soaking wet. Did you jump in the water? Good. All right. Yeah, I know, and now I got a big mess going on. Hold on one second. Yeah, dude. Well, what y'all want me to do with her? Hey, don't open that door. Oh, I thought you They're telling me take her to investigations and back here, investigation, back here.
Wait, Tyler wanted to make sure we talk to the judge first to see where she's gonna go. JDC or here. I mean, tell us.
Y'all ain't never done one? Okay. No, they're labeled. Yeah, open up the one right there. It should have all of them labeled right there. have to go the other way. Yeah, you're gonna have to go the other way. I'm gonna pull right there. Pull right there. Let me back up. Pull right there. Oh, hey, so without being like, one minute. She's in there, she does. She's asking like everybody to do that. She's like, I didn't mean to. All right, so get those. So look, come here. All right, so that's gonna be for your that's right hand. All right, left hand. All right, nocturnal. Look, I'm gonna show you right there. All right, you're gonna do on the right hand. You're gonna do the palm. Okay, I'm just showing you in the back of the hand. Okay. All right. Then whenever you get through, you're gonna turn it in. All right. All right, you're gonna open it, turn it back in. All right. When you turn it back in, then when you get ready to do this, it's right there. Close this and put that over it. Okay. Yes, sir. How you doing? Just back in back. Okay. All right. Yeah, let me get I got her handcuffed. All right, sweetie. Look. Let me see. Step out real quick for me. All right. Hey, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over around to the front of you, okay? I'm going to move the handcuffs around to the front of you. Okay? All right. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to swab your hands, okay? Right. And I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, but obviously you fired with a pistol, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Alright, look. I need you to hold your hand out like this. I'm going to do your right hand first, okay? That's your right hand. Your right like that.
Swab up here.
What is this?
So GSR, it shows which hand did you shoot with? Which hand did you shoot with? Alright, I'm gonna go up. Flop the hand, turn the hand over.
Turn it over.
And rub on the outside part around the knuckles.
Where do you want, what do you want to get from me? I guess you can put it in my vehicle with my key. Key fob is not in the pocket.
Alright, so go ahead and take it. Alright.
Is my stepdad okay?
I don't know, baby. I can't talk to you about it. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Lisa, what,
Okay, so, can you take her up to the office on the interviewer? Yeah. And then afterwards, I guess, I don't know if you want to hang out or whatever, but Judge wants you to stay at JEC tonight, let me inform you what's going on, and then she'll be brought over to jail in the morning after she sees the judge.
she has no idea what, she don't even know about her mom. Yeah, I know. She's like, it's my stepdad, okay?
Yes.
Okay, we paused it, but the camera had stopped. Why did the camera stop it?
Right, the camera's not stopped, it's muted.
Okay.
It's muted, yeah. The actual camera, in order to mute it, the button's right here, so it covers the lens, but it's still active. It's just it's muted.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong. Beforehand, when I asked you the question of why you had muted it,
Correct.
my understanding was you said it was a personnel issue.
Right.
Now, we're muted on the video right now.
Correct.
Right before you muted,
Right.
you're talking about Carly doesn't know her mother's dead.
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. Sustained is deleting, but rephrase your question.
Yeah. You saw what you said, remember?
Right, yes.
Was, what were you talking about? before
Right
you-
then, what I was talking about was she never inquired about her mother. I mean, that's why I was saying that, you know, she only asked about her stepdad. Hence, even when she got out of the car, she asked, how's my stepdad? It was never you know, she never like said, is my mom okay? Or anything like that. I assumed that she didn't even know about her mom, and I didn't know the full details of the case whenever I got there.
Okay. So why was it that when I asked you before, you told the jury it was a personnel issue?
Right. Well, whenever it was paused is whenever I began talking about the issue with driving around in a circle out there, coming back and forth. That's why whenever you replay it here, you'll see another deputy going like this. That's because I was talking about that issue.
Now, may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, sir. Do you intend to keep asking about the video?
Yeah, just a few more questions. I'm going to show you a document. You said you were aware. Are you aware of the policies and procedures of the Sheriff's Department?
I am.
Okay. Let me let you have this.
Okay.
This is a copy for you.
All right.
And there's a yellow piece of paper. And I believe that's it's going to be the first page on, it's dealing with it's a policy and procedures of body cams.
I'm familiar.
Okay. Now I want you to turn, it says, and it's actually at the bottom of page, it says page 1 of 4. Would you agree with me on that?
Yes.
And so you have a number 1, it says procedures. And it says when and how to use the BWC.
That's correct.
What is the BWC?
Body worn camera.
Okay.
Body worn cameras activated during.
And I got to correct myself. I said number 1. I said it's A. And so that would be A, correct?
Okay, A.
And then B is what?
Deputies shall activate the body-worn camera to record all law enforcement activities in contact with citizens in the performance of official duty, including but not limited to traffic stops, deputy-initiated stops of members of the public, arrest. You may keep going.
Yes, it'll be, and you're going to
Okay.
turn to page 2 of
Searches,
4.
interviews, and interrogations, warrant search the public that a deputy
Now,
activated until the actively.
okay, it says while the event.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so you didn't turn your camera off, correct? So C actually would be correct.
Right. I could have turned it off. I guess instead of muting it.
Okay, so now read D.
Deputies shall not initiate the mute selection anytime during the body-worn camera is activated for recording.
Okay, now did you do that?
No, I guess my better option would have been to cut it off.
Okay, now what do you do if you fail to, I guess, abide by these rules? Is there a procedure?
Sure. I'm assuming there is a procedure at that point. I'm sure there's a verbal warning. I'm sure there's things such as that.
Well, let's get down to number H.
Okay.
What does number H say?
If a deputy fails to activate the body-worn camera in situations where recording is required by the Sheriff's Department policy, fails to record entire contact that interrupts the recording, the deputy shall document why a recording was not made and was interrupted or was terminated.
Now, you did a report in this matter, didn't you?
I don't recall the report. Do you have it?
May I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Is this a copy of your report?
Yes. Yeah, it was brief. I'm sorry.
Okay. And I'm taking this was done at some time when you got back to the station or something.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, date entered. What was this? When did this happen? The 19th. Yeah. So, a day later. Yes.
Okay. Your policy says that you're supposed to make an entry if your body camera is ever interrupted, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Show us in your report where you did that.
Yeah, it's not there.
Okay. Your Honor, we'd ask that his report be entered into evidence at this time.
Any objection?
No, sir.
All right, be admitted. D. 8, all purposes.
And we would also
Hang on a
ask,
second.
I'm sorry.
Let's get it marked in first, please.
Already.
Yes, sir.
And Your Honor, we would also ask that the policy and procedure manual be entered into evidence that he's testified.
Any objection?
We have no objection to the body worn camera portion of the policy and procedure being entered, but I think what Mr. Kemp has is an entire thing. I think it would be irrelevant and confusing.
Your Honor, I can take those page. I can take the. We can have just those.
Y'all come modify it and look at it. If you would, please hand that to the bailiff. I'll walk over there.
No objection to that from second.
All right.
And Your Honor, what we did was for the record, we modified it so it's now a 5-page document. It starts out with just the policy and procedure manual is the first page, and then it goes to the actual policy for the body cam, which is the next 4 pages. It's listed. It's listed as page number 1 through 4.
Any objection to that, vote stay.
No, sir, Your Honor.
Be admitted without objection, D9. Does either side feel the need to introduce the rest for ID?
Not of the name, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Just, all right, you may proceed.
And Your Honor, I can't remember, did we introduce the video, and is that already in evidence? I think it has to.
Completeness, if a party plays one part of a statement, the other party can demand that any other part of it that ought to be showed to the jury, and fairness be showed. At this time, you can present. Do you want it from the beginning, or do you want it from here, from this point?
Just from here, Your Honor.
All right, hit play.
Well, she came, I saw her coming out of the Farmington there. I was like, hey, hey, hey. I said, and she said, I said, are you the girl that does that? And she goes, yes, sir.
I heard you go on the radio, right? Traffic got past you. I was in the damn center thinking, yeah. Turn around, come back. Then you were coming out. Good looks, Jack.
Yeah, man. I was just there, man.
Examination. Do any more?
Check, how you doing? Questions about as it on. Can you tell?
Yeah,
Okay. Function of
Extended that time over.
Whenever you audio for that.
That's correct.
You didn't mute your
Oh,
video at that time.
No.
Okay. And of course we all there. And in the back of your car, we can obviously hear that. Were Carly and Voodoo separated back there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And when it first comes on, I hear you say something to the effect of "up here on the right." Who were you talking to?
To her.
Was she telling you the directions to her house?
Yes.
Okay. Was she telling you the directions to her house?
Yes.
Okay. Was she telling you the directions to her house?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We also heard you say something to the fact that that they've got me out here on a merry-go-round or something along those lines. Were you frustrated around or something along those lines? Were you frustrated with the fact that think you to the station?
Yeah,
All right. You can
hold it the way it works.
I'm during ask you
Bad.
did she ever never did she tell with the right camera
Other deputy. Beside.
evidence once you
Talked to. And waited for.
or any way serve the
Done.
be clear you muted your body briefly everybody went
Farming. It was right behind me. Her to out. At that I did I activated activate traffic. That's correct. Yes, because we had people. That's correct. Yes, because we had people driving around everywhere looking for her.
right. And you said that you asked her the question that you did, and that you're talking about you asked her if
Yeah, I just asked her if she was the one involved
Okay.
at the incident that occurred at the house.
And she
Said that.
right. Hey, for
I felt like
and proceed.
that's correct.
That is
Activated. Gonna go.
Doesn't even know. So
That's correct.
who you're
On the
so the video.
correct.
When the person. No.
Yes.
Witness.
And Dr. Clark, what's your current age?
I'm 68 years old.
Okay. And what is your current occupation?
I'm a psychiatrist in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
And what, if any, who's your current employer?
I'm currently self-employed. I have a private practice of psychiatry. I spend about half my time doing treatment of both children and adolescents and adults, and about half my time doing forensic work.
And what, if any, teaching experience do you have?
So I was on the faculty at Harvard Medical School for about 20 years, from 1996 to around 2016, and I taught and supervised residents at Massachusetts General Hospital. And then I spent about 5 years at Boston Medical Center from 2017 to 2022, and I worked half-time then as the Director of Medical Student Education and Psychiatry, so teaching medical students.
And what specifically did you teach at Harvard Medical School?
So I taught forensic psychiatry as the primary thing that I taught. I taught forensic psychiatry to residents at Boston Medical Center, and I currently teach forensic psychiatry at Boston Medical Center, but just about once a month.
Okay. And where did you attend medical school?
I went to the University of Michigan Medical School and graduated in 1986.
When did you receive your medical license?
In, I believe, 1987.
What, if any, board certifications do you have?
So I have 3 board certifications. I'm certified in adult psychiatry, I'm certified in child and adolescent psychiatry, and I'm certified in forensic psychiatry.
And what, if any, certification have you held in pediatrics?
I trained in pediatrics at Boston City Hospital from 1987 to 1990, and I was board certified as a pediatrician, but I've let that lapse since I don't practice pediatrics.
And what, if any, certification do you have in neurology?
I have no certification in neurology. My psychiatry certification is through the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology.
Gotcha.
But I'm just a psychiatrist.
And when did you receive your board certification in psychiatry?
Oh, you're testing me. I think it would have been in 1995 that I was certified in psychiatry.
Now, as you know, lawyers go to law school and not med school because we're not very good at math. But is it fair to say that's roughly 29 years that you've been?
I believe that's correct, yes.
When did you receive your board certification in psychiatry?
I think you just asked me.
Oh, I'm sorry. When did you receive your board certification in forensic psychiatry?
Oh, I think it would have been around 1996 or 1997.
And when did you receive your board certification in child and adolescent psychiatry?
I believe that would have been 1997.
Okay. And what, if any, residencies have you done?
So I've done maybe too many residencies. I was a resident in pediatrics for 3 years, and then I did a 3-year residency in psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital, and then I did a 2-year residency in child and adolescent psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital, and finished my training in 1996.
And when did you receive your subspecialty certification in forensic psychiatry?
I believe it was 1997 that I did, and then it lapsed for a few years, and then I was recertified maybe around 8 years ago or so.
And what, if any, leadership positions have you held in the medical field?
So when I was at Massachusetts General Hospital, I was the medical director of the Children and the Law program, which was a program of individuals doing forensic psychiatry and psychology. When I was at Boston Medical Center, I was, as I mentioned, the director of medical student education in psychiatry, and I was also the medical director of the outpatient psychiatry clinic there. I also had a job at a trauma clinic in Waltham, Massachusetts, where I was the medical director for, I think, 4 years.
And what, if any, experience have you had with juvenile court?
So I worked for several years at the Boston Juvenile Court Clinic and the Norfolk County Juvenile Court Clinic early in my career. So probably 3 or 4 or 5 years altogether.
And what was your position there?
I was a staff psychiatrist there, responsible for conducting evaluations that were ordered by the court.
And who did you conduct those evaluations on?
Typically on adolescents or younger children who were court involved in some way, either juvenile delinquency or care and protection cases.
And what, if any, positions have you held with regard to child and adolescent forensic consultations?
I was, early in my career, I was a member of the Child and Adolescent Forensic Consultation Team in Massachusetts and did a number of evaluations, mostly competency to stand trial and not guilty by reason of insanity cases for the state.
What, if any, fellowship positions have you held?
I did a fellowship in infant parent mental health at one point about 10 years ago now, and I'm not sure what else.
How many times have you testified as an expert witness in child psychiatry?
I'm going to guess 150. That's just it's somewhat of a rough estimate, but I've been doing it for 28 years and probably have a couple of handfuls of cases each year.
And how many times have you testified as a forensic expert in child and adolescent psychiatry?
I say typically when I'm qualified as an expert, it's in either psychiatry or child and adolescent psychiatry, and not typically in forensic psychiatry.
Okay. What, if any, peer-reviewed papers have you published?
I've published 2 papers in the last 2 years, one on juvenile solitary confinement and one on the question of the ethics of psychiatric diagnosis. I've also co-written 2 chapters on juvenile post-traumatic stress disorder.
Your Honor, at this time we would tender Dr. Clark as an expert in the field of child and adolescent psychiatry.
Distinguished and without witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Dr. Clark. How are you?
Good morning, sir. I'm good, thank you.
Good to see you again. And you and I spoke over Zoom last week, didn't we?
Correct, yes.
But you didn't recognize me this morning because I had a beard last week.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Where do you currently hold an active medical license? In what state?
In the state of Massachusetts.
Okay. You're not licensed in the state of Mississippi, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Have you ever treated patients in the state of Mississippi prior to your involvement in this case?
No, sir.
Okay. Have you ever prescribed medicine to patients in the state of Mississippi in your practice?
No, sir.
All right. Have you ever been accepted as an expert in any court in the state of Mississippi?
No.
All right. Is this your first time in Mississippi?
I've passed through here before.
Okay. I got you. And you just told Ms. Todd that whenever you've typically been accepted as an expert, it's not in the field of forensic psychiatry, correct?
That's correct.
And just by way of brief definition, what is forensic psychiatry?
So forensic psychiatry is that part of psychiatry that interfaces with the justice system typically. And most often working as an expert for court-related cases.
Right. But you're typically not rendered as an expert in forensic psychiatry, correct?
That is correct.
Your Honor, we would just re-urge our prior motion as it relates to Dr. Clark, but otherwise, nothing further.
Any further objection?
No, sir.
All right. The witness will be admitted as an expert in the field of child and adolescent psychiatry. Hang on just a moment. Rex, 1 moment. Great. All right. Now that the witness has been qualified as an expert, I was informed that the circuit clerk has y'all's lunch here today. I don't want, it's 11:46, I don't want that to get cold, all right? All right, anything from the state before we begin?
I think the parties have agreed to stipulate also to the CD of Dr. Abednego on that.
All right. State or defense? State. What state's next? And defense agrees, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, state next in number all purposes. Y'all approach it real quick. Jury ready? Bring him in. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this afternoon after lunch, if anybody gets tired, I'm not saying y'all would get tired, but I've seen it happen before. Somebody finds themselves dozing off or head nodding, just stand up for a minute, okay? That's perfectly acceptable. All right. Court has accepted the witness as an expert in the field of child and adolescent psychiatry. You may begin your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Clark, let me start out by asking you, when we say adolescent, what age range does that include?
I'd say typically the ages of between 12 and 18.
How did you first get involved in this case?
I got involved because Attorney Camp gave me a call somewhere around the middle of August and asked whether I might be available to do an evaluation.
Okay. What, if any, records did you initially review?
What I did at first, I suggested to Attorney Camp that I might just spend a few hours looking at the initial records that he could provide me before I agreed to go any further. And so Attorney Camp sent me a number of different records. I can't recall specifically which ones they were, but a fair number of records regarding the case.
And do you recall what kind of records these were?
They were treatment records for Carly from her therapist and from Precise Medical from early 2024. I believe there were treatment records from her earlier years as well, and there were some police reports as well.
Okay. And what about any journals?
I believe in that initial batch there had been some written journals that had been found at the residence.
Okay. And did that include any sketches?
I believe there was a sketchbook as well, yes.
What all did you do as a part of your evaluation of Carly?
So what I did is kind of the second phase. After having reviewed those records, I spoke to Attorney Camp and suggested I wasn't sure that I was going to be helpful, but I thought it'd be worth my coming down to Mississippi and interview her. And so I came down here and interviewed Carly for about 4 hours on August 29th of this year.
Was anybody else present during that evaluation?
You were present during that evaluation.
Anyone else?
No.
And where did you interview Carly?
That was right here at the I think it's Rankin County Detention Center.
And after your evaluation of Carly, did you have an opportunity to review anything else?
Yes. So after my evaluation of Carly, I received some treatment records from Vital Core, which were her psychiatric treatment records from the correctional facility. I then wrote a report, and then subsequent to my report, I received a copy of the state's experts report. In addition to that, I did a video interview with Mr. Heath Smylie, Carly's stepfather, for about 90 minutes on August 31st, just 2 days after I had seen her.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Go for every county counsel officer first, unless it's already in evidence.
And I'm handing you a copy right there of a document. Can you tell me what that document is?
This is a copy of my written report dated September 3rd, 2024.
Okay, and can you tell by looking at your report what the date of your evaluation of Ms. Gregg was?
It was August 29th, 2024.
And is the document I gave you a true and accurate copy of the report you compiled?
I believe that it is, yes.
And if you need to, take a minute to flip through and make sure.
No, I'm good, thank you.
And did you sign that report?
I'm sorry?
And did you sign that report?
I did, yes.
Okay. And does your report include a list of any documents you reviewed?
It does, yes.
Does your report also include the list of anybody you spoke to in regards to putting this report together?
It is lacking one interview that I did, which I did not rely on. I spoke somewhat briefly with Ms. Vicki Breland, who's Carly's maternal grandmother, on, I believe it would have been September 1st. I chose not to utilize that information, and so didn't rely on it in my report, and so didn't list it.
So, you didn't list it because you didn't rely on it in your report.
Correct.
And does your report include a true and accurate summary of the interview and your mental health evaluation of Ms. Gregg?
Yes,
Does it also include your opinions?
it does.
Your Honor, we would ask, and is it labeled psychiatric evaluation report?
It is.
And what's the date on that report?
September 3rd, 2024.
Your Honor, we would ask that Dr. Clark's report be admitted into evidence.
You'll approach. You may proceed.
Dr. Clark, you've been tendered as an expert, and did you base your expert opinion on any facts or data that you've been made personally aware of?
Yes, I base my expert opinion on my training, my experience, my knowledge of the literature, and on the information that I gathered as a part of this evaluation.
And did you also base your opinion on facts and data in this matter that you personally observed?
Yes.
And can you tell me what you personally observed that you based your opinion on?
So what I personally observed was my 4-hour interview with Carly, my 90-minute video interview with Mr. Heath Smylie. I then reviewed a large quantity of records, including some videos and some still photographs. So I guess that's personal observation.
Okay. And were you able to after observing and reviewing the records and your interview with Carly, were you able to come to an opinion as to the ultimate fact in this matter?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
And is that contained in your report?
yes.
Okay.
Just to be clear, I guess I came to an opinion regarding the McNaughton issue in this matter.
And that's contained in your report?
It is. I will say my position is that the final decision as to whether or not Carly Gregg meets criteria for the McNaughton standard is one that is most appropriately left to the finders of fact. It's not my job, not my business. I feel I'd be usurping their responsibility, so I didn't answer that ultimate question, but I believe that I provided enough information to allow the finders of fact to use that information in their deliberations.
Okay. And that is contained in your expert report?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time we ask that Dr. Clark's expert report be admitted into evidence.
Objection.
Second objection, Your Honor.
I'll approach. Sustained, you may continue.
Dr. Clark, are the interviews you relied upon and the facts and data that you reviewed and observed what you ultimately relied upon to come to your conclusion?
Yes. Along with my training, education experience, and familiarity with the literature.
Your Honor, at this time, we would ask that Dr. Clark's report be admitted into evidence.
I'll approach.
That you reviewed and relied on, the same that any expert in your field would typically rely on when making this evaluation?
I'm not sure I can speak for any expert, but I believe that the protocol procedure that I utilize is one that is standard in doing a forensic psychiatric evaluation, that interviewing the party, interviewing knowledgeable collaterals, reviewing the relevant records, and then coming to a conclusion, I think is typically how such reports are done.
And would your interview with Carly and her family member that you stated be typically done by someone in your field who's trying to come to an opinion?
Yes.
Who would be rendered an expert of that opinion?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we ask that Dr. Clark's report be admitted into evidence.
Still an objection.
Yes, sir.
Y'all approach.
Dr. Clark, based on your evaluation and the records you reviewed, what were your overall impressions of Carly's personality and development?
So my overall impressions were that Carly was a young teenage girl who loved school, was bright, I think enjoyed the fact that she was bright, loved reading books, loved thinking big thoughts, that she was a loyal and generous friend, that she may have been something of a follower rather than a leader, that she was generally energetic, she was involved in many activities, that she had a close, although somewhat complicated relationship with her mother, and a close, affectionate relationship with her stepfather, and that she had a much more problematic relationship with her biological father.
And what, if anything, were you able to gauge about Carly's having any behavioral issues or a history of behavioral issues?
So it was my impression that Carly had, to a very large extent, always been well behaved, was a dutiful girl, sought to do well in school, sought to please her mother by doing well in school, and then in the last perhaps year developed some what I took to be relatively common teenage behaviors, such as staying up past curfew on a burner phone to text with friends, for example. I think on one occasion she snuck out at night after curfew to go visit a friend. And then, in addition, in the last perhaps 6 weeks prior to the arrest, she began smoking marijuana.
What, if any, past history of trauma did Carly have?
So Carly had a somewhat difficult childhood in a couple of different ways. One is that she had a younger sister who died of a medical illness when Carly was about 4 years of age, and the younger sister was around 18 months of age. And Carly reported to me that that was hard for her. She remembered it happening, and it was difficult for her. Secondly, her parents divorced when she was around 4 or 5 years of age. She reported to me that she remembered a lot of arguing, and that she recalled having seen her mother having been bruised or injured by her father, that there was domestic violence, although she never witnessed it directly. She told me that her mother had informed her that the father had beaten her. And she told me that she recalled she and her mother leaving late at night as the parents separated. She told me that she, and it's my understanding as well from records, that Carly had court-ordered visitation with her father about every other week, but that was difficult, that she found her father to be angry, unreliable, that at times he would just sit in a chair all day long and not speak to her, that at times he wouldn't help her get food or fluid, and there was one incident in particular when she was around 6 years of age when something the father had done frightened her and she ran and hid under the bed. And this was an incident that continued to bother her. She also told me that her father was a dangerous and scary driver, and it was scary for her to drive with him.
What, if anything, did you learn about Carly's educational history?
So what I learned was that Carly was always a good student, that she worked hard, that she got good grades, that she scored quite high on standardized testing, and that she had skipped the 4th grade. And she reported to me that she really enjoyed or appreciated having skipped because she thought she found the 5th grade that she went into more challenging academically, and she actually liked the kids there. So my understanding is that she had always done very well academically.
What, if anything, did you learn or consider regarding any incidents at school with Carly?
So I think there were maybe 2 or 3 incidents at school. One was when she was in the 7th grade, she brought a knife to school. And she told me that it was a Swiss Army knife, and she brought it because another child had asked her to. And what she told me was that the other child had then told the principal about it. But at any rate, she was found out to have had the knife, and she ended up having to go to an alternative school for that semester. I reviewed records from a therapist that had met with Carly and her parents on, I think, at least 2 occasions around that time about that incident. And the therapist indicated that she thought that this was, her quote was, much ado about nothing. And the therapist implied in her records that she thought the school was being sort of overly reactive around it. But nevertheless, Carly went and spent a semester in an alternate school.
Based on your evaluation and the records you reviewed, what did Carly actually do when she got to that alternative school?
Well, what I understood was that Carly had taken some responsibility for helping to teach the class when she went there.
You said earlier that you found Carly to be more of a follower than a leader. Can you elaborate on that?
I think that it was something that I had read from some of her friends describing her in that way. I understand, for example, that there was an incident at school when Carly and perhaps other kids, I actually don't know, but Carly at least had drunk some hand sanitizer, kind of on a dare. So I took that to be an example of her not using terribly good judgment and kind of being a follower in that regard.
Based on your evaluation, when did Carly first begin to develop mental health issues?
Well, when Carly was young, ages let's say 6 to 9 or so, what she reported to me was that she felt kind of depressed. I don't quite know. I'm reluctant to use kind of the psychiatric term of depression, and that for a child that young. But Carly reported that she was unhappy. She said that it was tough having to visit her father. The divorce was hard. The death of her little sister was hard. They were living in a small house, and I think somewhat financially strained. This is before Heath Smylie came into their life. She said that was a difficult time. She also reported, well, actually, I think 2 or 3 things. One is, I noted from the records that there were a few occasions when Carly was noted by her therapist to have had intrusive memories or bothersome memories at times with her father. And she was reported on one occasion to have just been minding her own business and kind of idly and having these memories coming back and were bothersome for her. She also reported that she began hearing voices relatively early in her life. Again, the ages 6 to 9, that she began hearing a voice. It was a male voice, unfamiliar to her, that would say things like, "You're better than them," things that were sort of elitist in a certain way. She reported that that became a constant, not necessarily bothersome, but kind of a constant thing for her. She also reported that, again, early on, that she began to have this experience of feeling distant from the world, as if she was in a dream. Things were sort of foggy for her in that regard. So that she said was kind of a regular, frequent thing that happened to her, again, in this sort of ages 6 to 9 period of time.
You just used the phrase intrusive thought. Can you explain to the jury what you mean when you say intrusive thoughts?
Yes, I'll try not to get into jargon too much, but intrusive thoughts is one symptom of post-traumatic stress. And I'm not diagnosing her with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, but people that have experienced trauma that haunts them afterwards sometimes have the experience of, especially when they're not paying much attention or when their guard is down, the memories will come back and in a bothersome way. All of a sudden, they'll just recall whatever it was, and it'll be upsetting for them. So, and for some people, they can be really bothered by it. It can be very problematic for some folks. But so it's considered to be a post-traumatic symptom, and that Carly seemed to have had in the aftermath of her difficult experiences with her biological father.
Based on your evaluation, was there a period of time in which Carly's mental health issues began to be more significant?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
So beginning from around the age of 9 or so, what Carly reported was that she began to feel depressed, that the auditory hallucinations, meaning that she was hearing voices, that those continued, that these experiences of feeling like the world wasn't real continued. And then somewhere between the ages of 9 and 11, the depression continued, and she then began to cut herself. And as I understand it, she'd been cutting herself for about 2 years, so starting around the age of 12, that she would, on a fairly regular basis, make superficial cuts on her thighs as a way to help manage her anxiety and distress. And
go ahead.
I'd be happy to talk about just cutting, right, which is a relatively common phenomena that typically teenagers engage in, not so much in a way to try to kill oneself or injure oneself, but as a way to cope with feelings that are too much to handle. So it's kind of a maladaptive way of coping with feelings, and often it's a reflection of some level of either depression or anxiety or just mental health struggles.
And based on your evaluation, about when did Carly's parents learn that Carly had been engaging in cutting?
So I think it really wasn't until December of 2023, so just last December, that Carly's parents learned. As I understand it, she had been cutting fairly regularly for about 2 years before her parents found out.
Were there any other behaviors that her parents learned around December of 2023?
So the other behaviors that the parents learned about at that time was that Carly had been using I think an old iPad or an old iPod perhaps, to text with friends, and I think with a boyfriend, quote unquote boyfriend, after hours. She'd be doing this, of course, without her parents' knowledge or consent, and Carly's parents found out about it.
What, if any, issues had Carly begun to experience with sleeping at this time?
So Carly began to develop sleep difficulties from the summer of 2023, and she reported, and Mr. Smylie confirmed to me as well, that she had trouble falling asleep and that she would often wake up in the middle of the night. And she began to take melatonin to try to help with that. And I think by the fall of 2023 found that the single 5 milligram dose of melatonin that she took wasn't enough, and so she would sometimes take a second melatonin tablet to make 10 milligrams.
And is that harmful to take 2 melatonin tablets?
You know, the dosing of melatonin is pretty broad. It's not uncommon for people to take 10 milligrams. Some people take 1 milligram. I'm not sure there's much data to support it, but it's not particularly harmful to do. But I know that her mother was concerned about it, and her mother began to hold the melatonin and give Carly just a single pill each night.
And just in case there's anyone who doesn't know, what is melatonin?
Melatonin is an over-the-counter sleep aid that is that's widely used, thought to be helpful for sleep. Melatonin is a naturally occurring chemical that your body generates to try to put your body to sleep. And so again, it's widely used. It's generally considered to be safe and maybe somewhat effective.
Is it fair to say that melatonin is classified as a vitamin?
I don't think it's actually classified as a vitamin, but again, it's over the counter, and I think, as far as I understand it, no one is particularly concerned. No regulatory agencies are particularly concerned about the fact that so many people take melatonin.
And what happened beginning in January of 2024?
So after Carly's parents found out that she was cutting herself and staying up late using this burner phone, I'll say, in addition, the other thing that happened around that time was that Carly reported to them that she was feeling depressed, and that she thought she needed help as well. So really those three things happened. And in response, Carly's mother sought out both therapy and a medication evaluation. Carly's mother contacted the pediatrician made a referral. Carly had an evaluation initially at Precise Clinical with a prescriber, and then shortly after that, her first session with a new therapist, Rebecca Kirk.
What was the course of Carly's treatment between January of 2024 and March of 2024?
So there were two parallel treatments going on. One was the psychotherapy. Right? So Carly was seen every week by Rebecca Kirk, and Carly reported to me that she really liked Rebecca Kirk. She found her good to talk to, compassionate. She liked her. She had not liked her therapist when she was younger, but she liked Rebecca Kirk and felt that she could be open with her. And so they met every week. In addition to that, Carly met with a prescriber early in January and was begun on antidepressant medication. So the prescriber at Precise Clinical diagnosed Carly with major depressive disorder, which is the psychiatric term for depression, as well as adjustment disorder, and started the medication Zoloft.
What is an adjustment disorder?
So adjustment disorder simply means that an individual, I'll just back up and say, it's a DSM-5 diagnosis. DSM-5 is sometimes called the Bible of psychiatry. All the official diagnoses are in DSM-5. And if you're going to bill the insurance company for a visit, if you're a clinician, you need to have a DSM-5 diagnosis to bill. And so adjustment disorder is a pretty broad category that really means someone is having a difficult time with something that's happened in their life. I tend to think of it as relatively meaningless. Like if you're not quite sure what else to say, call it an adjustment disorder, and that covers a lot of ground.
And what is major depressive disorder? So
major depressive disorder really is the psychiatric term for depression. And in this case, depression, not just feeling sad, but depression is a psychiatric illness. And
how is depression different than feeling sad?
So we use the word depressed in a couple of different ways. You know, if you're feeling down, you might just say, well, I've been depressed today. But in the world of psychiatry, depression really is an illness, and it tends to affect not just your emotional state, but it can affect your sleep, it can affect your energy, your ability to concentrate, sometimes your appetite, your ability just to enjoy things. People sometimes feel the whole body has slowed down, and then not uncommonly, people might become suicidal when the depression gets bad enough. So it's really considered to be a psychiatric illness. And it's often the case that individuals who are diagnosed with major depressive disorder then are prescribed psychiatric medication, and antidepressants in particular, to try to treat it.
You mentioned that Carly was first put on Zoloft. Do you recall the dosage that she started on?
I do. So Zoloft is also known as sertraline, which is the generic name. It's an SSRI, specific serotonin reuptake inhibitor medication. It's an antidepressant, and it's widely used in teenagers. And she was given the dose of 25 milligrams initially.
And how did that medication seem to affect Carly?
It didn't seem to have much effect at all. I will say it's a low dose. And so in that first month or so, Carly took it and reported that it didn't really make much difference one way or the other.
What if any course of treatment was changed at that point?
So in February, Carly had a follow-up visit with the clinician from Precise Clinical and reported that the Zoloft wasn't doing very much at that dose. And so the clinician raised the dose from 25 to 50 milligrams. And I will say that's a perfectly standard dosing. It's a relatively low dose. The standard dose for Zoloft is 50 to 200 milligrams. That's usually the range where people end up. Folks will often start at 25 milligrams just to kind of go slowly and be gentle, but it's not at all uncommon for adolescents to end up at 50 milligrams fairly soon.
And how did that dosage of Zoloft affect Carly?
So Carly reported, both to me and to the clinician, that at the 50 milligram dose, she felt numb. She felt as if she wasn't able to really experience much pleasure or feel her emotions very much. She reported that it didn't really help that much with the depression, but it really left her kind of flat in a way that was unpleasant for her. And I will say that's a very common reaction. I feel as if I see that quite frequently.
Do you remember the term Carly used for how it made her feel?
Zombied was the term.
And what, if any, medication was Carly changed to after Zoloft?
So at the follow-up visit on March 12th with Precise Clinical, she reported feeling numb, and the clinician then changed her medication to one called Lexapro or escitalopram. It's another SSRI medication, and I will say that it's actually quite common for someone to do poorly on one SSRI and better on another. We don't have the ability to identify up front, ahead of time, who's going to respond to which medication, and there can be a lot of individual variability. So one person might respond well to Prozac and badly to Zoloft, and the next person might respond well to Zoloft and badly to Prozac, and it's a fair amount of trial and error that's often involved. And so this clinician, at that point in time on March 12th, prescribed 5 milligrams of Lexapro, it's a relatively small dose, and instructed Carly to lower the Zoloft down to 25 milligrams for 10 days and then to stop it. In fact, Carly told me that she just stopped the Zoloft cold turkey, I guess, right? Cold turkey is not quite the right term because she didn't have withdrawal symptoms, but she stopped the Zoloft abruptly on March 12th because she didn't want to take it anymore. And maybe she didn't quite understand the instructions. So starting either on March 12th or maybe the next day, Carly was on only the 5 milligrams of Lexapro.
And was there a point in time when a prescriber had mentioned trying to put Carly on Prozac?
I believe that at the initial visit with Precise Clinical, what they reported in their records was that Ashley, Miss Smylie, told them that when she was younger, she had been put on Prozac and she had become suicidal quite immediately, and so really did not want Carly on Prozac.
How did Carly's personality begin to change at school after her dosage changed?
After her dosage
After her medication changed.
So there were a number of things going on by March 12th. And I guess are you asking how she changed the school after that?
Yes.
So my understanding is that Carly managed to be very effective at doing well in school, showing up, looking engaged, and getting good marks. However, I also understand that beginning sometime in February of 2024, Carly began smoking marijuana at school.
And what did you learn about Carly's use of marijuana?
What I learned was that sometime in February of 2024, so perhaps 6 weeks or so before the incident, Carly began smoking marijuana. She told me that she smoked 2 or 3 times a week. I think she told the clinician at the correctional center she may have smoked up to 4 times a week, but not every day, but a number of times a week. She told me that she smoked both at night to kind of help her with her anxiety and to help her sleep, and sometimes during the day when she was in school.
And why was it that Carly turned to the marijuana usage?
So what I know is that Carly reported that she used marijuana to help her deal with anxiety and stress. Which I think it's a very common reason for adolescents with mental health difficulties to begin smoking marijuana.
Would that typically be described as self-medicating?
Yes.
And in your experience, is that something people tend to do when they're experiencing symptoms of any medical issue that's aggravating them?
I don't know about any medical issue, but in my experience, I think two things can happen. One is some adolescents start smoking marijuana because they enjoy smoking marijuana. But others who are struggling with mental health difficulties start smoking marijuana because it helps them feel better. I think especially, at least in my experience, adolescents who've been taking medication, when the medication just doesn't work very well, they get a little frustrated or a little discouraged, and and they smoke marijuana, and at least in the short run, they feel a little bit better.
Based on your experience, expertise, and evaluation of Carly, how was the marijuana likely to have caused or affected her symptoms?
So, I have a lot of patients that smoke marijuana, I will say. It's legal in Massachusetts, which may make a difference. So typically, with individuals who smoke marijuana, what I find is that it may help their anxiety in the short run. Many people report that it helps them helps them sleep better. It typically doesn't worsen a mood disorder. It typically doesn't worsen anxiety. My primary concern with people that smoke marijuana is that they are less engaged in life. They're spending their time high rather than actually doing things. For Carly, particularly her being in school, I'd be concerned that she just wasn't doing as well academically. And if Carly had friends who had feelings against marijuana, it just puts her kind of at odds with some of her friends who are not smoking.
Based on your evaluation and the records you reviewed, did Carly's academic performance begin to suffer at this time?
As far as I can tell, not. The only thing is that Carly reported to me that on March 19th, the day of the incident, she woke up grumpy and irritable and couldn't pay attention in school. She said that was the first time that had ever happened. She'd always been able to really focus well in school, but on that particular day she just could not pay attention.
What, if anything, did Carly tell you in regards to smoking marijuana on March 19th?
What Carly told me was that she had not smoked marijuana on March 19th, that she thought she had smoked on Monday, March 18th.
And do you recall why Carly said she didn't smoke marijuana on March 19th?
I actually don't.
Okay. What were your conclusions about Carly's mental health at that time, between January to March 19th?
Yes, I have a few. I think one is that I think Carly was struggling with a significant mood disorder. She had reported to her clinician that she was depressed. They had diagnosed her with depression. They were treating her with depression. Wasn't very effective at that point in time. But in addition, I asked Carly about what is called hypomania. And hypomania is a condition where a person's mood is elevated. I guess I'm going to give a little background. So in psychiatry, there's major depressive disorder, or what's sometimes called unipolar depression, where a person is either depressed or they're normal. But there's another condition called bipolar disorder. And classic bipolar disorder is one in which an individual often oscillates between being really depressed and then being manic. And when you're manic, your mood is very high, you're full of energy, your thoughts may be going fast, you feel often bigger than life, you can be more confident, and it can become a very unstable and dangerous state. People often have very poor judgment, they take a great deal of risk, they can spend a lot of money, and they can become really quite psychotic when they're manic. I don't think that happened with Carly, but there is a condition called hypomania, which is elevated mood, but not as severe as mania. Hypomania is where your mood is up, you're full of energy, you feel good, you're confident, you're funny, you're thinking fast, you're smart, you're on top of the world. People actually often enjoy it. Like, nobody comes to a psychiatrist complaining that they've been hypomanic. But for people that have, and there's a condition called bipolar 2, in which an individual suffers from depressed mood, but also at times a hypomanic mood. And the hypomanic mood is not the problem, the depressed mood is the problem. But it makes a difference because when you treat bipolar 2 with an antidepressant medication, you often can make things worse. Either nothing gets better, or you can make someone worse because you can drive them into a manic state. And I think of it, I often say to patients, it's like having a boat without a keel. If you don't have a stable mood and you're cranking up the motor, you're going to be zigzagging all over the lake. And that's what often happens when you treat someone with bipolar disorder with an antidepressant medication. They can have significant problems. So I asked Carly very specifically about hypomania, and part of the reason I asked her was because my understanding is that her biological father has been diagnosed and treated with bipolar disorder. And bipolar disorder is a highly heritable condition, meaning if you have a parent that has it, you're at much increased risk of having it yourself. So a teenager with depressed mood with a parent with bipolar disorder is at a high risk of having bipolar as well. So I asked Carly, what she reported to me was that she has had for the last several years regular, discrete periods of time when her mood is up, when she's more restless, she's more impulsive, she's more rude, she's more tactless, she's physically somewhat agitated, and she'll take risks. She told me that she got her nipple pierced when she was in that state. She told me that she had these clear-cut states and had been having them for a number of years. She told me that I asked her to estimate over the last 5 years, how much of your time have you spent in any state? What she said to me was, over the last 5 years, she thought about 60% of her time in a depressed state, about 20% of her time in a hypomanic state, and about 20% of her time in a normal mood state. So I gave her the diagnosis of bipolar 2 disorder.
Your Honor, may I approach? Dr. Clark, did you also review Carly's medical records from Precise Medical Clinic?
I did.
I'm going to pass you a copy of those documents. Can you tell me what the exhibit number of that is?
Defendant's Exhibit 19.
Okay. And what records are those?
These are the records from Precise Medical for Carly Gregg.
Okay. And if you'll see at the very bottom, there's a little red State versus Carly Gregg,
Yes.
and with numbers. If you could, will you turn to page 761 in those records?
Yes.
Okay. And will you tell me what we're looking at on this page?
Yes, what we're looking at is something that's called the modified mini screen, which appears to be a series of questions that were asked of Carly, I imagine, I would think, prior to her visit with the clinician.
And what would be the purpose of having her fill out this mini screen?
The purpose of these screens are to try to flag any possible problems. So it's also time saving. So you're asking a number of questions to try to identify what might be the problem areas. And then presumably when the clinician sees the individual, they can focus in on those and ask follow-up questions.
Is this something that would typically be helpful for diagnostic reasons?
Yeah, I'd say more than anything, it raises questions. It allows the clinician to kind of focus their interview questions.
And could you read that first question for me?
Question number 1 is, have you been consistently depressed or down most of the day, nearly every day, for the past 2 weeks?
And how did Carly answer that?
Carly answered yes.
And could you read question number 4 for me?
Question number 4 was, in the past month, did you think that you would be better off dead or wish you were dead?
And how did Carly respond to that?
Carly answered yes.
Will you read question number 5?
Question number 5 says, have you ever had a period of time when you were feeling up, hyper, or so full of energy or full of yourself that you got into trouble, or that other people thought you were not your usual self? Parentheses, do not consider times when you were intoxicated on drugs or alcohol, end parentheses.
How did Carly respond to that?
Carly responded yes.
Could you read question number 7?
Question number 7 was, have you had one or more occasions when you felt intensely anxious, frightened, uncomfortable, or uneasy, even when most people would not feel that way? Did these intense feelings get to be their worst within 10 minutes? Parentheses, if the answer to both questions is yes, select yes, otherwise select no.
How did Carly answer that question?
Carly answered yes.
And will you read question number 8 for me?
Question number 8, do you feel anxious or uneasy in places or situations where you might have the panic-like symptoms we just spoke about? Or do you feel anxious or uneasy in situations where help might not be available or escape might be difficult? Examples, being in a crowd, standing in a line, being alone away from home or alone at home, crossing a bridge, traveling in a bus, train, or car.
How did Carly answer that question?
She answered yes.
Could you read question number 9 for me?
Question number 9, have you worried excessively or been anxious about several things over the past 6 months?
And how did Carly answer that question?
Yes.
Could you read question number 12 for me?
In the past month, have you been bothered by thoughts, impulses, or images that you couldn't get rid of that were unwanted, distasteful, inappropriate, intrusive, or distressing?
And how did Carly answer that question?
She answered yes.
Could you read question number 13 for me?
In the past month, did you do something repeatedly without being able to resist doing it?
And how did Carly respond to that question?
She answered yes.
And could you read question number 14?
Have you ever experienced, witnessed, or had to deal with an extremely traumatic event that included actual or threatened death or serious injury to you or someone else?
And how did Carly answer that question?
Yes.
And what stood out to you in your review of precise medical records?
What really stood out to me was their question about have you ever been up or hyper? And I saw no indication, and this is, I understand this to be a question that really is screening for mania. You're looking to see whether bipolar disorder of some sort might be a problem. And Carly answered yes to that. And I saw no evidence in the records from Precise Clinical that they had followed up on that. And they ended up not asking her about mania, according to their records, and prescribing her antidepressant medication, which in retrospect might not have been the best choice.
How, based on your experience and expertise, how difficult is it to diagnose mental health issues in teenagers?
Well, it can be tricky for a couple of reasons. And one is that a lot of times teenagers are, if they have a mental health issue, it's just starting to come to fruition at this period of time. It can be a little hard to know. And there's a wide range of kind of normal teenage behavior. And